Back live. Okay. So, um, so your job is part as the objective of this mission is to dock at that space station, and
Okay.
really, it's all about learning how to fly and learning
Hmm.
how to pilot or navigate your ship.
Okay.
Okay. So the
Yep.
way it works is you don't move your ship um, directly. You instead of moving your ship one hex at a time, you move it using and controlling the velocity of your ship and the vector in which it's facing. So
Hmm.
here we have on the left-hand side the velocity board, and on that
Yep.
board is the vector token. And you'll
Hmm.
see there's a arrow on that token facing a direction. Right now it's facing along this path. And that's actually
Yes.
orientated to the same way the ship is facing.
Hmm.
So on my activation, and each round we'll go through activating each of our ships. And on my activation, I'll select a crew and place them on one of the actions on the ships. And this could be most commonly is the navigation action. They also have other
Hmm.
actions like regenerate shields, repair hull, and
Hmm.
um, repair your reactor. But as you add modules, you'll have other abilities here. And
Hmm.
then if you're using a specialist, you have other abilities up here that you can place. And we'll go over those in the second part of this mission. But for
Okay.
now, I'm just going to place my navigation crew on navigation. And I'm going
Hmm.
to apply thrust and possibly rotation. And each of these ships has a limit to what they can do. In this case,
Hmm.
the Bastille Battlecruiser has a maximum thrust of 3 and a
Yeah.
maximum rotation of 2. So
Okay.
that means that you can only move this token up to 3 spaces at a time and rotate it at the end up to 2 angles of the hex. So what I'm going to do is apply 3 thrust. So I'll spend 3 energy. So for every hex of thrust you want to apply, you have to spend 1 energy. So I'll spend 3, and I'll just put that up here,
Okay.
and then move my token. And then for every rotation, I need to spend an energy. So I'm going to spend 1 to do that and rotate. So what that does is it lets me know where my ship will be in the future after I move it. So if you look at the
Hmm.
board, the sector board, you'll see that Tabletop Simulator has placed a token for me. And that's something that
Yeah.
you would actually do yourself in the physical game,
Hmm.
but is um, automatically placed in the case of Tabletop Simulator. So
Okay.
this token will represent where the ship will be in the future and where it will be facing. So you'll see the arrows pointing along this path.
Hmm.
So at the end of this, my activations or anything that I like to do on my ship, I will then start to move the ship. And I move it along that path to that token and then align it to the direction.
Okay.
So that would be a very simple example of how the ship would move. You don't directly move it, you move it because of its velocity and where it's facing.
Okay.
So, and you also notice there's a token left behind there. So that's useful to let you know where you were in your
Hmm.
movement, so you don't forget where you were. You could always go back and readjust where you're how you were playing the move as you get used to playing. Um,
Okay.
so that will be there until the next person goes. Let me place it. And now, let's say we went around another turn, and I have reactivated my ship. And normally I would flip this token to let everyone know that I activated it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's say I didn't do anything else, and I kept my current velocity and vector as is. This token doesn't automatically move back to the middle of the velocity board. It stays where it is. So this represents your inertia and your in direction in which you're going to be traveling. It doesn't matter which way your ship is pointing. So the ship is pointing this way, but it's not going to move that way. It's always going to move relative to where the token is on the vector board, on the velocity board. So if in my next move, I would end up here.
Okay.
So I'm not really keen on going towards the edge of the board. I like to be able to, get closer to where I'd like to go and dock with that space station. So
Hmm.
then I'm going to on my next turn and regenerate energy. On my next turn, I would spend an energy or two for thrust, and then I would move my token forward. So whenever you apply thrust, you always have to move the token the direction of the arrow of the vector
Mhm.
token.
Okay.
You can't move it sideways unless you have an ability to do that. These ships don't have that ability. You can't move it backwards. You only can ever apply thrust in the direction your ship is facing. That represents using your engines in the back.
Mhm.
And then I'm also going to do a rotation again, and then that will put me in the next turn here.
Mhm.
So it looks like I'm still heading off the board, but don't worry, because the next turn I can go again and apply 3 more thrust, like so, and move my token this direction. So now my next position will be here, because I've completely changed my direction by applying that thrust. And you'll notice
Okay.
that as I've gone around, it's kind of like you're drifting around to the position using the thrusters of your ship.
Mhm.